David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. Today I have for you a fairly new pen from Laban, which is the Gloria. What I'm going to do today is talk about the parts and features of this offering. I'll go over what I care for and what I don't care for about it. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. Thanks go out to the good folks at Laban for providing this pen for review. I have reviewed a number of pens in the past from Laban. They are based out of Taiwan and were founded back in 1981 by the brothers John and Charles Hu. Over the years, they've produced a private label brand for the Vatican Museum, as well as producing pens with elaborate metal designs and hand-painted art. The pen I have for you today is different than what I had seen previously from the company, and I find it interesting that they are changing things up again in regard to this release. The Gloria is available in two different models. There is the blue sapphire, and then there is also the ruby red. The pen arrives in this new box. I say new just because it's the first Laban I've received in this box design, I believe. The side slides open, and inside we have a use and care guide. We have a cardboard bookmark, and then there was even a sticker of a Laban branded nib. And then we have the pen. This is the Laban Gloria, and this is in the sapphire blue. The pen is made from metal. It is made from brass, and the trim is gold-plated. The cap and barrel are adorned with a diamond guilloche pattern, which I feel looks very nice. It's rather eye-catching. I love the varying look of this patterning as the light catches it. It's coated with a thin layer of clear lacquer. The lacquer isn't so thick that it makes the exterior of this pen smooth. You can feel the patterning in the metal, which I think is a good thing. Let's take a look at the top of the cap. As I mentioned before, the trim on this pen is gold-plated, and the tip of the cap comes to a rounded point. Then we have the clip. While I feel it's a bit nondescript, it does fit in well with the overall look of the pen. I do find it to be a bit on the stiff side, so interacting with thicker materials might take a little bit more effort. The cap angles up until about the halfway point, where it straightens out until you reach the cap band. The band is engraved with the company name, Laban. Then there is a medium-sized rounded step down to the barrel. The barrel is straight for about 2 inches before tapering down, and then on the end, there is another gold-plated piece matching the one on the cap, which comes to a rounded point. The cap twists off in 3 full rotations, and underneath we have a 2-toned stainless steel nib. The nib is a bit on the small side. It's roughly the size of a number 4 nib. It's slightly larger than what you'll find on a Kaweco Skyline Sport. This particular nib is a broad, and you'll see in the writing sample, it is extremely smooth. It just surprised me a bit how smooth it was. This nib is available in extra fine, fine, medium, or broad. And here's a look at the plastic feed. The section again is gold-plated metal and angles up slightly before it transitions into the cap threads, which I don't find to be sharp or uncomfortable if your grip should rest on them. Even though this section is metal, it isn't concave, and it's devoid of any flare at the beginning, I don't really find it to be slippery. I can maintain a decent grip on this pen, and I'm typically not a fan of slick metal sections. While this is metal, I wouldn't necessarily describe it as being slick for me personally. The pen is long enough to use unposted. The cap does post, and it does post securely. Even though this cap is metal and rather hefty, it posts deep enough that the cap rests on my hand rather than hanging over the edge. This helps distribute the weight of the pen a bit more evenly and doesn't make me feel like it's back-weighted. I can comfortably use this pen both posted and unposted. This is a cartridge converter pen. It accepts standard international cartridges, and a converter is provided. With the interior of this barrel being metal, eyedropping would not be recommended. I have seen the Laban Gloria available at a few different retailers, and it is retailing for right around $190. While I don't feel that that's too out of line, I do feel it's on the high end of the scale in regard to what you receive with this pen. I really like the guilloche patterning. I feel it looks very sharp. And I've been asked on a number of occasions what nib I feel is the smoothest. While I feel that there are many more criteria to looking at a nib than just smoothness alone, I have found that this broad nib on the Gloria is extremely smooth, and in a good way. You don't feel like the nib is out of control because it's writing on glass. There's just enough feedback for you to be able to keep the car on the road, so to speak. Okay, now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, and the aforementioned writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Laban Gloria. Let me just give you another close-up look at that guilloche pattern. It's really cool. I really like it. And in regard to a couple of other Laban pens, this is what it looks like with the Laban Snow. And then this is what it looks like with the Laban Skeleton, which is one of my favorite Laban models. And here's what it looks like with a Lamy All-Star. In regard to a couple other pens, here it is with a Narwhal Schuylkill. And here it is with a Kaweco Skyline Sport. And then finally, I was on a podcast that should be dropping here in the next couple of days, the Stationary Orbit podcast. And one of the questions that they asked me was, what was one of my favorite purchases this past year? And my answer was this pen here from Rockster Pens. I've done a review of this, but this is a burled maple, and just take a look at that. It is just amazing. This is actual wood. It's kind of a wood-resin combination, and just amazing. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at that review, I'd highly recommend it because, like I said, this is one of my favorite purchases over the past year. In regard to some uncapped comparisons, this is what it looks like with the Lamy All-Star. And here it is with the Laban Snow. And then I'll put it right next to it. This is what it looks like with the Kaweco Skyline Sport. And you can see that the nib sizes on those pens are fairly similar. So here we go with the Laban Gloria. And this is a stainless steel broad nib. You can see that it's a very generous broad. And the ink that I'm using today, appropriately enough, is Laban Artemis. And this is their navy blue. This is what the ink looks like. You can see it's a nice deep blue. And here's what it looks like in comparison to something like the Electric DC Blue from Private Reserve, as well as another nice deep blue, which is Ferris Wheel Press Jelly Bean Blue. This is what the bottle looks like. It's a nice 50 milliliter bottle. This is part of Laban's Greek mythology series. And Artemis was a Greek goddess of a number of things, like wild animals and the hunt and vegetation and a few other things as well. But there's a lot of nice inks in this particular series. And then here we go with the rest of the writing sample. I've mentioned it a couple of times, but this nib is very smooth. It has just a hint of feedback, so you don't feel it's like skating across the page. For a broad, it is laying down a decent amount of ink. And in regard to flow, you can see here that it's a decent amount. In regard to some reverse writing, it's very smooth as well. And lays down a nice medium line. In regard to some fast writing, there's no issue with the feed keeping up at all. So there we have the Laban Gloria, and this is in the sapphire blue. There's a lot to like about this pen. I really like the guilloche material, and then on top of that, this broad nib is extraordinarily smooth and enjoyable. So the combination of that makes it something that's well worth checking out. Okay, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.